That is Joseph Matunjwa, AMCU president, speaking to us yesterday. We still await a fresh response to our questions today. Now, the standoff over Marikana raises the following questions. Firstly, is it legal for AMCU to control movement of people in Marikana? And can AMCU's bid to turn Marikana into an apartheid-like no-go area be accepted? And is AMCU not playing politics by keeping the ANC at bay but letting the EFF and others to use Marikana as a political platform? So that's the question we're raising on the significance of AMCU rather, and especially in preventing engagements with the widows of the massacre or the Marikana massacre. We speak to Tsepo Kadima, who's a political analyst, and Nomazodso Memani, advocate and leader of the ANC Women's League, and Xolani Nzuza, the Lonman Strike leader. As we get into this discussion, Khadima, of course it's become very sensitive. We've even spoken with ANC leadership in the Women's League that it's difficult to now have to foster any form of relationship when there are all these opportunistic political stances being taken.
Look, I think when it is puzzling that those that are managing the campaign of Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma believed that or advised that there was merit in her going to the site. There is absolutely, I don't think that it was warranted. For the same reasons that AMCU stood up and said that Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa is not welcome here because he will opportunistically use that fateful day to campaign for his presidency of the ANC, that should have clearly been a warning, I think, to everybody else within the ANC. We have to bear in mind this. The African National Congress is the governing party. It is the African National Congress-led government that is still not finalized the compensation for the victims' families. And if anything, I think the leaders of the ANC, and more so those that are campaigning, such as Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, the best thing that she could have done, most certainly, would have been within the ANC itself, as she's a member of the National Executive Committee, to have really pressed on, not now, but much earlier on the need to expedite the settlement or compensation settlements with the victims' families. And that unfortunately meant that it was not surprising that she was refused access to that. And taking into account that she was with Baba Morale earlier in the day at the royal household, she was well received. She had what I thought was a very good speech that was a lot more, I think, really emphatic on the urgent things that need to be done. Yeah. And that she should have cut her losses right there and there, or rather, should have called it a day right there and there than to attempt to go to side, because it becomes an unnecessary distraction in her campaign. She should have at least understood that for the ANC, I think, as long as this matter has not been settled in terms of compensation, it will remain a no-go zone for them. Mr.
Napoleon Webster, Marikana activist, thank you so much for joining us. And of course, this for you is a reality that you probably live in your mind and based on the experience over and over, where it is more a headline for other people. If you were to look at what's currently happening there in Marikana and what needs to be done, do you think that the politics are overreaching or interfering in what could possibly be a different narrative for the people of Marikana?
Honestly, the politics are actually interfering with what should happen. It will be good to have politicians who can start addressing the issues that affect black people. There's an issue of housing, which was one of the causes of Marikana, I mean to say Lonmin massacre. That issue has not yet been addressed. Lonmin has not built the 5,500 houses that it was supposed to build. They only built 3 houses, sample houses. It's so painful. One would imagine if Lonmin, one would imagine if Microsoft, for instance, employees were staying in shacks like the Lonmin employees. it's painful that our brothers were killed, and now it looks like it's people are trying to build momentums for the campaigns.
And I mean, the role of AMCU as well, I mean, at this stage, they seem like the gatekeepers as to who's got access. They have provided a welcome for the opposition and denied the ANC. Again, I think the focus is missed in where we should be concerned about in the living conditions being improved for the mine workers or the victims and surviving members.
Yeah, it shouldn't surprise us that AMCU effectively has become the union of choice, at least within Lonmin operations, and I think within the Platinum Belt itself. Because if you look at it, certainly they have been seemingly the ones that were fighting for the living wage, or at least that at least you can achieve the 12,500 rand that they demanded, which effectively precipitated the fateful day events of that day. So certainly it should not surprise us that AMCU is that strong. I think what we are seeing here is that the African National Congress itself missed the golden opportunity to have that, with all the power that they have being the governing party. They most certainly should have settled this matter at least 2 years ago. The negotiations, there hasn't been any feedback. And it's all about, because now if you look at it, the whole nation is saying, well, what actually is happening? What is the holdup? And there doesn't seem to be any communication that is succinct and that clarifies what the holdup could be. And for as long as that is the case, it's going to be near impossible. Now, if you, let's say, for example, if you are in advising any of the presidential candidates, be it Deputy President or Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, any one of them, if you are to advise them, if they make Marikana to be the big event in their campaign, it's going to sink their campaign, because Marikana is not South Africa, and yet, if you go now to try and say, look, I need to be there, I think that their campaign will die right there and there, because a lot of things that they could have done at least 2 years ago, they didn't do, and it's water under the bridge.
Yeah, but I mean, justice is still denied for many victims and widows and the likes of Mr. Webster here. We have Xolani Nzuza, who was the Lonmin strike leader at the time. Mr. Nzuza, thanks so much for your time. Just looking at the role of AMCU, are you of the view ukuthi i-union le isiza i-situation or isimo sabahlali nabasebenzi baseMarikana?
Andiwukho uphinde umbuzo wakho uthetha iphi language kakhe
no ngiyahlanganisa bhuti wami ngivela elokishini, so if you will bear with me, unless you want to say ukuthi I'm a linguist and I speak, I'm proficient in all the languages, so ngikhuluma isiZulu nawe kwamanje, wena ukhuluma yiphi language?
Ngithetha isiXhosa nesisuthu.
All right, izangizazama ke isiXhosa. Umbuzo wami ukuthi AMCU njenge-union imele abahlali be Marikana or Lonmin inphethe kahle okanye bayisebenzisa i-position yabo for i-politics. I hope uyangizwa.
Hayi sisi AMCU khonda ingena kuyo kwindawo abahlali imele abasebenzi for elonmi kuphela, ayikho ingene bahlalini. Ubuza lo mbuzo.
Yeah, into engiyibuzayo ukuthi sibone balela i-leaders e-ANC ukuba zothetha nabantu, kodwa ke i-DA ne-EFF ivunyelwe. Uyibona njani leyo ndaba?
Bale nini izolo?
Yebo, beku Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, and previously sibone no Cyril Ramaphosa, I think it was a week or so ago, alelo ukuthi afike azothetha nabantu apho.
No, mamelake Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma ezo members AMCU ukhumbule ukuthi bi-commemoration izikipa ze-AMCU beziphumile benikezwe abantu entabeni eKopini. Kuba seyi-AMCU eranayo i-union ekhoyo apha inikeze i-members zayo izikipa eyazicholayo ngo-2012 eKopini.
So usho ukuthi
union ebezazi kuyo.
Oh, okay, so anyeke sisho ukuthi i-AMCU kungahle kube abanye abantu maybe abenza ukuthi Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma angakhona ukuthetha nabo.
Ngabasebenzi baselonmi abayazi ukuthi fanele acela i-permission besithi bendikhona nami koloko bendikhona apho. kufanele acele permission yokuza entabeni ikopi ayonda ukuthi ubani nobani xa icinga ukuya iEFF neDA ezuthetha ngazo xa ziza ekopini zicela permission ukuthi siyacela ukuza entabeni sizokwenza into ethile bavumelane nama lawyers ayisimele eyasichola kulandaba.
No, ngiyakuzwa ke bhuti wami, ngiyabonga kakhulu. Dasixolane Nzuza. He is the 2012 Lawnman Strike leader with my broken Xhosa there. Just loosely translated, he says that it's the workers that prevented Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma from going there because she hadn't observed the necessary protocol. Mr. Webster.
I also want to clarify something. I was there yesterday when we asked doctor to leave the place. There was a community. It wasn't only AMCU. There's this narrative that is going that AMCU. It was the community of Marikana, because it's not only AMCU that is affected. The community around there. There are people who witnessed the pain that occurred. The massacre affected the whole community. And also the community of South Africa. I don't think the community of South Africa will be happy when politicians will just come there to push their agendas. It is very wrong.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke to the ANC Women's League and they were saying that it's oversight on their part in how the invitation was communicated. So thanks for that clarity, that it wasn't necessarily based on the fact that she represents the African National Congress, for example. It's just that, as you say, protocol was not properly conducted.
True.
So she would be welcome in any other future opportunity.
Had she gone, had she followed the proper channels, and again, let's be honest to ourselves. I mean, she's campaigning. You know, she wants to be the president, and this is the wrong time for her to do whatever she wanted to do. She could have done it a long time ago. And, you know, you'd remember that she was the chairperson of AU. She could have used, you know, AU as a platform to, you know, to address the pain that happened in Marikana. Because I'm sure that a lot of mining companies are exploiting Africans, and nothing is happening. She could have used that platform perhaps to address, you know.
No, but I think,
set an example.
Yeah, but because as a multinational, as you're saying, that they've got representation all over the world, why is it that there hasn't been a international strike being organized to the headquarters of Lawnman, for example?
Yeah, I think it goes beyond just Lawnman itself. But if we look at this situation, it's actually not necessarily in isolation. And I think that Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, perhaps in leading to Marikana, as I say, if I was advising her or advising any other leader within the ANC who wants to campaign, would be first use the seat at the table you have that you're within the governing party to ensure that the state can settle with the victims. Until that is done, it's a no-go zone. But until that is done, unfortunately, there's going to be a growing dissatisfaction with the African National Congress, because they are the ones that have got the privilege of being in power as we speak now. And clearly, it has never been explained as to what is constraining the finalization or the conclusion of the restitution. Now, when we look in other areas, for example, around that community there, for as long as mining companies are not paying royalty tax in terms of their production, it will not be possible for this state to be able to build social housing for the employees of those mines. It's just simply not possible. And until the mining companies are paying a living wage, it will also not be possible for those workers to be able to build for themselves decent facilities for home and otherwise. So this is the only thing that the state can be able to handle. The question is, why is it that we are seeing that even within the ANC itself, they are not agreed on what needs to be done to ensure that the mining companies are contributing their fair share?
Yes, let's just test what the commission report or recommendations were, Mr. Webster, and how far those have been fulfilled. Just on the issue of the minimum wage, because this was the catalyst of what led to the tragedy in Marikana. So have they met at least that basic demand of a living wage?
Well, Fairly so, yes. I can say yes, but the living conditions are still bad. I mean, if somebody is earning 10,000 rands and does not have a proper house, still stays in a shack, it doesn't make sense. The living conditions are still bad. There are some small mining communities, like I'll give you an example. 2 kilometers from Marikana, there's a little village called Maditloko. The community was forcefully relocated. They had proper houses, they had animals, goats, and all that. They were moved into shacks by a mining company. It's so painful that as we speak now, there's no crash, there's no recreational facility, there's no clinic, there are old people, their graves were just, they were not properly relocated. And some of them, the community members, they had to be employed by the same mine which is extracting. And as they were digging, they experienced some, bones of their ancestors. It's so painful that we have to. Is it because you're black? Why don't our leaders, why don't ANC do something?
Yeah.
Why don't they do something and actually be practical?
Yeah.
We've discussed ideas, we've discussed problems. Why don't they do something?
Mr. Khadim.
Look, I mean, this is not an isolated case. I mean, everywhere else where we see mining companies work, last time I think ANN7 here did an expose on the community where there's diamond mining in Northern Cape. And again there, same story. The question that must be asked is that whilst we are speaking about these things, why are we not seeing that decisive leadership? Why are we not seeing that decisive action from the state to be able to attend to these issues? Because the dignity of these hapless people is being molested on a daily basis. How long shall it be? The constitution of this republic, which we so much celebrate, by the way, one of its requirements is that the state must do everything else to ensure that the dignity of all citizens is not only restored, because we know the legacy we've come from, but also that it is uplifted. So we're seeing incidences on a daily basis. In this country now, we have even we can bring the definition of the working poor, that you got people who are employed. It could be in this mining sector, it could be in the agricultural sector or everywhere else, or even as domestic workers, but they are effectively the working poor. Now, so effectively Marikana is just
it's a microcosm.
It's a microcosm of what is effectively happening within the whole country. What is it that we're going to do? If you listen to the statistics that were given by the Statistician General yesterday, it can't help but worry us, because it's only a matter of time that the whole situation will explode. And when it explodes, we can say Marikana times 1,000 times.
And that would be a sad day. It's something that we need to work hard towards preventing. Mr. Webster, when you say you've put forward solutions and engagements with various stakeholders, what does Lonmin in itself say when you put forward your grievances?
Lonmin, they're thugs. What they do is they divide the mining companies. Not only Lonmin, I may say Lonmin is like a role model of other small mining companies. What they do is they divide the communities. They take people who are vocal within our communities and they empower them with like small contracts, and that's how they operate. And people end up losing concentration on the real issues. Lonmin creates problems, and those problems, they divert the attention. I'll give you an example. There's a crisis of houses in Marikana. There's a housing scarcity in Marikana. And people are earning. If the mine could offer the land, people were going to build the proper houses. But instead, they don't want to give out land so that they can control what is happening around, and they can create problems, and people start diverting attention on the real issues. So like recently, we occupied 300 houses that the government built for us, the government built 300 houses to try and shade the responsibility of a mine. Because Lonmin was supposed to have built 5,500. They only built sample houses. So the government instead built 300 houses. So we occupied those houses because we felt those houses were used to try and drift an attention away from Lonmin.
Will we see closure, though, in this matter? I mean, now there's at least a docket by the National Prosecuting Authority to further institute criminal charges against those that were implicated. What do you think? That
there can never be closure unless you've got compensation paid to the victims' families. There can never be closure unless the mining companies are now paying their fair share, and that they can only do through a royalty tax system which for years and years has been resisted, and as a result the state does not have the resources. So for as long as we've got the government that is timid, that is frightened to act when it's supposed to act right, then there is absolutely going to be no closure. Now 5,000 houses, if they had been built in the last 5 years, 1,000 houses a year, let's say for example since the tragedy, what would have that done in terms of employment creation opportunities there, even developing, let's say, upcoming construction people? What would happen to the raw material that would have been procured to the economy? So clearly, we're not going to have no closure for as long as these issues are not attended to. But we need a state that can once and for all really take a bull by the horns and do what is right. The mining industry will not come to a standstill if we introduce tax. To retrench, they are going to retrench thousands more because they've been doing so since 1988, as we now know, that from 750,000 people today, we've got less than 320,000, and by the end of this year, there'll be less than 300,000 employed. So they will continue to retrench. So we cannot be scared from acting rightly in terms of introducing royalty tax on the basis that there will be job losses.
All right, Mr. Khadima, I'm just going to have to hold you there and invite Advocate Nomazocho Memani. She is the advocate and member of the ANC Women's League. Advocate, thank you so much for your time. Just bring us up to speed in terms of, number one, we spoke to a member of the community or an activist of the Lonmin strike who said it wasn't AMCU that prevented Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. It was essentially a problem of your own design by not following the proper protocol.
Yes, Cindy, I can say it was not our own design per se. And we understand, in terms of African culture, when you want to visit a grave, you need to consult the family. So the ANC Women's League, because it was part and parcel of its program, then it visited as part and parcel. But then I think there was a problem with the communication between the two, the local structure, meaning the Northwest, together with the Lonmin, I mean with the AMCU.
Yeah.
Yes, and actually I must say, we really apologize as the ANC Women's League because we never wanted, to bring any attention. We did this thing as the ANC Women's League in order, as the mothers and also as part and parcel of our women's
Mr.
program.
Webster, why is it not viewed as being part of the commemoration in respect of those who lost their lives? And you tend to look at it purely as a political posturing, primarily from the Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma.
It will be wrong for ANC Women's League to try and commemorate privately. We all commemorated on the 16th. Why should they commemorate maybe days after? Why don't we commemorate together if it's not a political thing? Like she is saying, we should have commemorated together as like a community of black people in respect to those who passed.
Yeah. Do you think that maybe the union is also interfering in making that connection with the victims and families?
I cannot necessarily say that the union is interfering because, bearing in mind of the role that the union played, during the Marikana process. So we respect that as the ANC Women's League. And I must say that, during the commemoration, there were members of the ANC Women's League who were not on Pregalia, but the local members of the Women's League who attended the event, even though we were not announced. Yes.
But why is it the opposition is welcome there and the ANC is not in the Marikana commemorations?
the opposition, like the ANC Women's League, like being given a platform to speak.
I'm saying in this case, the DA and the EFF were on the podium and the ANC was not present.
You know, also bearing in mind, you know, the background of this Marikana thing, you know, the perception has been given out there that the government was responsible for this whole massacre that took place in Marikana. And the ANC, I mean, the ANC as a party is the ruling party, it is the government. So I think that is the process, because as the ANC Women's League, we were not invited in the commemoration. As I'm saying, there were members were just there, but were not in the podium, were not giving speeches.
Yeah, very briefly, Mr. Webster, what would it take for the ANC to redeem itself in this matter?
I mean, ANC from beginning, they never, actually, I'm one of the people who blame ANC for Lon Min massacre, because they never came out and say, you know, we apologize. They are in position of power. They could have done something. Like now the deputy president, Cyril Ramaphosa, he is heavily implicated. He was a shareholder, and we are of a belief that he was put there as a security guard. And as a member of ANC, as ANC takes collective decisions, we blame ANC entirely for the Lon Min massacre. Yes. So ANC never came and said, you know what, we apologize. Even Cyril, he comes now when he wants to be the president. It's very opportunistic of him to come now and say, I want to apologize and all that. We are not fools. Cyril Ramaphosa took part in the murder of our brothers.
Yeah. We know with the Farlam Commission that he was exonerated amongst many others, but we've spoken about this being an albatross around his neck and the ANC by extension. And I don't know if there's any immediate solution in sight.
Conclude the settlement, or the compensation for the victims. If they do that, that'll be the first step. And I think, as I was mentioning earlier, if Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma had been pushing within the ANC, I think she'd have found a more receptive ear. Even after this, even if she was to send in today a formal request to AMCU around that area, it will still be a no-go zone. That must be assured. And if she has to try and go there, so the best thing that she can do, which I believe will earn her a lot of goodwill, is to push from within, cook the rice in the pot. And the cook rice in the pot in her case would be to ensure that not just in terms of Lon Min and Marikana, but in terms of really the appalling living conditions we find communities around mining areas that live in. You go to Mokopane, for example, the world's largest open pit platinum mine. You cannot believe that is the world's largest open pit platinum mine because of the poverty around there. Even the town of Mokopane has not changed a bit in the last 30 years. So you wonder that, well, what is the benefit of mining? And largely, as I say, is because of externalization of profits. The mining industry yesterday just denied that they don't do transfer pricing or under invoicing, but it is a fact because the UN Trade Development Council did come out with that report. All they did was to dismiss it. So the government, the state here, must urgently introduce royalty tax on all mining production, on all minerals. Yeah. Other countries have done that. I've spoken about Nigeria, Botswana, Saudi Arabia. Everywhere else is done. Even in Tanzania, they've now done it. But except here in South Africa, we are told there'll be job losses. And those job losses right now are happening. Catastrophe is coming before the end of the year. One gold mining company, 8,500. Another gold mining company, 7,400.
Yeah,
2,500 in the platinum sector.
Yeah, I'm sure,
so,
you know, yeah, in terms of the mining charter and that we can explore. But I just want to look at, especially with the ANC Women's League, your view in now the Marikana copy not being accessible to you, and this being a word from AMCU. Is it legal in your view, you know, that they can control the movement of people around the copy?
No, it is not legal. It is not legal. But as I've indicated earlier on, that we respect AMCU as a trade union, and we also respect, you know, the families, you know, the families that have lost their head they've lost their loved ones. We respect that. It is not legal, but as I am saying, you know, as the ANC Women's League, and I've said earlier on that we really apologize. And I hear my brother here saying that the ANC has never apologized on the matter, but we are discussing it as the ANC Women's League. We are discussing this matter behind the doors because we've realized that we cannot live with this forever. It's not a political thing, or it's not because there will be elections soon, but we feel that, you know, as mothers, that we need to take a responsibility, and we need to ensure that the governing party do things correctly, because the same people that were killed in Marikana, those were the members of the liberation movement. We cannot run away from that.
Advocate Memane, we'll leave it there. Thanks indeed for your time. Tsepo Kgadima, political analyst. And we have Mr. Napoleon Webster, Marikana activist. And we have Xolani Nzuza, the 2012 Lonman strike leader at the time. And thanks indeed for joining us.